Hello and welcome to the General Discussion Series finale here on Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. For the 410th and final time, let's meet the panel.
Hi, I'm Larry.
I'm Cyndi.
And I'm Josh. And we were hoping that Jesse would be able to feel better for this discussion, possibly phone in. Unfortunately, she was not able to take part, but we have this nice bottle of wine as a placeholder. The bottle of wine would have been there whether she phoned in or not, though. It's a nice bottle of wine that I got for Christmas. We are going to be discussing, for our very last general discussion, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. The discussion starter that I have for this has to pertain to the fact that Maya Angelou was known most for being a poet, but she did write a good handful of memoirs, and this was her very first, from 1969. It covers her from the age of 3, when her and her 4-year-old brother Bailey moved in with their grandmother and Uncle Willie, and it concludes with her at the age of 17 giving birth to her first child, Clyde. She doesn't refer to him by name in this piece, but knowing some background information, that's what we find out. What do you think stuck out to you about this piece and the way that this was written, executed, and showing her talent beyond poetry?
It definitely does that. We did read some of her poetry a few years back for an episode, just based on her poetry. And, so I was somewhat familiar with her poetry, but she's a very talented writer. There's no way around that. She's very good with words, very descriptive and communicative of emotion in a way that is relatable and easy to read.
She's fantastic as far as being able to convey raw emotion is concerned.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say the best chapter in the book is probably, for me anyway, my favorite would be the Joe Louis chapter. I thought that was really great. When she's describing how everybody used to go to her grandmother's store, all the blacks in the area would go around and listen to the radio whenever Joe Louis was on to defend his title, and how that would go for them, and how excited and hopeful everybody was that Joe would win. And
just how she spoke about her grandmother's store was magnificent. Because it's something that they were familiar with, because that's where she worked and they were there frequently.
Yeah.
And the things that they acquired while they were there, kind of thing, what they sold there and whatnot.
I thought it was really powerful. I mean, and very moving. I had a hard time reading it because it triggered some really intense, powerful emotions about that time. So, and the story. I remember when I was a kid, I read some of her poetry, and I read Caged Bird, which she also wrote, and it's the same kind of a theme. But as a kid coming up, I never read it. It was like we read the Caged Bird in school, but we didn't read this book, and I don't understand why. Looking back at it, she should have been something that was a must-read, you would think.
Yeah, I think that this is where a lot of it begins as far as getting into Maya Angelou is concerned, aside from me growing up in the 1990s and seeing Maya Angelou on Sesame Street. I think that as far as being introduced to her in the academic setting, and when it comes to reading her actual works is concerned, I think that maybe getting a hold of her poetry is one thing, but reading her memoir, and this is where it all begins, is something that really is something that you should be able to dive into, especially since she talks about growing up in the segregated South. The school setting of the time was different, whereas if you were a white person in a classroom, you can be confident to answer the question because it wouldn't matter if you were right or wrong, but if you were a black person, you better have the right answer. That was the mentality
of her.
Being in that environment, being in an environment that is dominated by white people as opposed to equal footing.
Well, what it shows, I think, is it shows a strong racial identity that the blacks have, right? Because you don't want to be somebody who represents, the black intellect, so to speak, and say something wrong, right? Like that's Whereas if you were white, you wouldn't even think about that. It wouldn't be something that you would even care about, right? You would just, it's only going to be you as an individual as being as part of the dominant culture. But if you're black and you get something wrong, then you might be thinking that everybody in the classroom's thinking, oh, that person got it wrong.
But it's based off of
person or something like that.
It's based off of stigmas that were wrongly inserted into society. I think that you got to put everybody on the same footing. You have all kinds of intellects, and the fact that you're holding somebody to a certain standard just because of their race, that shouldn't matter. What should matter is this person got the question correct. Their race is just what they happen to be.
But like I said, that's just, that's part of it is just the fact that there is that strong racial identity that the blacks have with them. They still have it today. They carry it. But there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that it's different than white people. White people don't really identify with other white people the way that black people do. And I think part of that reason is because they are, a significant minority. So that it's kind of an us versus them mentality that they have that they hold.
Mm-hmm. And I really don't like that. Being of a certain background has to be a determining factor when it shouldn't. You should be of a certain background and be comfortable following the path that you want to, in the marathon kind of way, not in the race kind of way, not in the race to see who wins and how important is that kind of way.
Yeah, that's what America is supposed to be about, right? Is where we just we judge every individual based on their own merits.
I think that the topics in this piece also have a great range. Some of the things, being in the store is one of the more simpler aspects of her life, and I liked how she was able to touch upon that. And then she also really touched upon intense things as well, such as when she moved back in with her mother and how she was raped by her mother's boyfriend, and it led her to becoming silent for quite a period of time.
Yeah.
A teacher of hers, Mrs. Flowers, was able to help her get her voice back through literature and poetry.
Yeah.
And she became immersed, and she even had Maya recite some poetry too, publicly.
Yeah, it was really amazing to see, some of those characters who were kind enough to her to really help her out. Mrs. Flowers being one, her grandmother, I thought was a great influence for her. Her mother, in her own way. And all of these different people brought out, they had different things going for them that they could share with Maya and help her become a more well-rounded individual, right? Her mother was very religious and into, so obviously kept a very stern and moral kind of house, where her mother was ambitious and Mrs. Flowers, had the appreciation for the finer things in art and that kind of thing. So, these three different female voices were all able to, help make her into the national treasure that she has become.
Yeah, and when I was reading it, I was fascinated with her own struggle with identity as a female, her insecurity, her inferiority. And that's something that I myself have wrestled with, and so I thought that was really powerful, and I was amazed that she could write some of these things down and share that and advocate for people, and even for herself to express that in that way and be so forthcoming and detailed and not holding anything. There's a lot of things that I could talk about, and I won't, because I admire the fact that she just let it go.
Amazing thing is that these are things that you find out because she makes mention to them. If you just saw her for her face value, she presents herself with such confidence, and she's very warm in her disposition, very outgoing. She's also very honest and straightforward, and then you see a lot more of that in her writing. Just the detrimental things that she went through during her life. She is like all of us in where she has her flaws, and she does a magnificent job conveying that within her writing. I think the little details as well. The fact that she became Maya because of her brother's nickname.
Yeah.
She was born Marguerite Johnson. Her older brother called her Maya because he was referring to my little sister. Funny enough, she ended up becoming bigger than him, bigger and taller. She was 6 feet tall.
Really?
Yeah, she was a tall woman.
That's quite tall.
And then Angelou was one of her spouses.
Oh, okay. And I think it's interesting. Well, one thing, because I kind of still am a fan of the Beats and the fact that she spent at least part of the 40s in San Francisco during that was pretty much the place to be for the Beats at the time. So you get that kind of a little bit of a glimpse that she was kind of living like one, where she had that little phase where she was homeless. That's very Beat. That's a very Beat thing. And she was hanging out with all the homeless kids and everything in San Francisco, and that kind of just threw me in reminiscence about reading some Jack Kerouac, things like that, in a very similar vibe.
They handled it a little bit differently, though, than she did. I think they were a bit more rebellious, and she was rebellious in her own way. Her rebellion seems to be more what we would find logical in the societal way. Some of them took to proud drug use. William Allen Burroughs was a little bit...
Yeah, they all were a little bit.
Shooting your wife in the head like it was trying to reenact William Tell is a bit
extreme.
Yeah. With the Beats, it was a bit more. They were going over issues that were more. I mean, when it came to LGBTQ+, that would be more time before it would become. There would be a better platform to recognize it.
Yeah, well, the only reason I brought it up is because it is San Francisco. It is the 1940s, and it did come across very Beat the way that they were living. I mean, her entire life was kind of modern. Like, you could say that the Beats were living modern before it became fashionable to do so. In a way, she was as well.
I would say in that way, it runs parallel. It's almost as if they had the same intent, or they were playing similar tunes, or actually not. They had the same intent, but they were playing different tunes. Different instruments.
Well, jazz was a big deal too,
yes,
to the Beats and to San Francisco at that time. And obviously, that's a black genre of music, so it makes sense that there would be an interplay. And yeah, it's different, because they don't have the Beats didn't really have the racial stuff to overcome the way that Maya did and the other black people. So it is different in that way, but they were all kind of, like you said, rebellious.
And in a way, you had to be, because they were rebelling against something that was unfair.
Now remind me, why is it that when she went to work for that woman, that the woman wanted to rename her Mary?
It seemed to be like a fetish or something that she had, where she was just constantly renaming her black employees. So was the other one was Hallelujah was her real name, but then she got renamed Gloria when she came to work for that woman. There was another one there, and Maya said in the narrative, she didn't say it out loud, but in the story she said that she had to wonder what that person's real name was and everything else. So it was kind of like she was like renaming these people.
I think that goes back to the days of slavery.
I think that naming is a methodology of taking control of somebody. When you name something, it becomes yours.
Yeah.
You develop that sense of
ownership
So
to that.
we'll go back to that.
So that does have the connection there, because I know with slavery they also took on they would take on the last name of the slave owner too. That's why Malcolm X changed his name, because he was born Malcolm Little, but he did not want the last name of his slave owner, so he just considered himself Malcolm X.
And that was when she turned around and broke the china, yeah.
Yeah, and then she got her name back real fast. The woman started calling her Marguerite again right after that.
But what are your thoughts about the name of this book? I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. The origin comes from the Paul Laurence Dunbar poem Sympathy. To me, it pretty much harps on the idea that someone that feels restricted from society, they want to do their best to assert their rightful voice within that society. And I think that was what she was trying to get at. Think otherwise?
No, I would agree.
Yeah, because that line, the caged bird sings of freedom, and I think that was like that's a theme throughout this book. That that's just what she was trying to convey to the world, is that we need equity. We're caged in. We feel this way. We need to get out. So I think that's all kind of summed up essence of the story would be just about that right there. And I think that influenced her in the writing of the book.
Yeah, it's really a search for identity that she has. Right? She's trying to figure out exactly what her limitations are, and which of her limitations are perceived and which are actual. Trying to push against the boundaries as much as she can to be the most authentic version of herself that she could be.
And it turned out she had a whole lot fewer limitations than she thought, because didn't she become the first, not only, was it the
trolley car girl.
Right? And not only that, not only black, but a woman.
Yeah, she's accomplished a lot. Out of the people that she makes mention to in this book, the name that we recognize is Maya Angelou. That's what matters in the end of the day. I mean, this is just the beginning. It went all the way up to Mom and Me and Mom, which was her last memoir. That was released in 2013, and she died in 2014, if I'm not mistaken. Do we have any final thoughts?
There's a couple of things in there that I didn't think were necessary. I don't know, like in the unabridged copy, I don't know if you saw the unabridged copy, but or if it's in every copy, but like in the first part when she's at church and she has to run out.
Oh, to use the bathroom? I think that's interesting that she incorporates those little details about growing up. I would say that I wouldn't consider it superfluous, but...
I don't know what it adds.
I thought that's... You talking about the one she was in church?
Yeah, she's...
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, there was,
I thought, when I read that section, I thought, this is really where she lived. This is really how she lived, and that was the details. And I really liked that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I personally liked that because it's like I never heard anything about that coming up in my life or in my school. We didn't talk about those things. We didn't see what that kind of a life looked like. And here it was, right?
The thing that I like about this is the way that it's arranged. You guys have read Night by Elie Wiesel? It's a memoir. He was a Holocaust survivor.
Yeah,
okay.
I did.
I like the way that that's arranged and how they're written based off of how they themselves find it significant. These are details that are raw and natural. It's not arranged like a TV show or a movie in how everything has to be climactic. It doesn't have to be where you have to incorporate your cliffhangers so that people keep reading it for the sake.
it's a first impression, that's for sure.
But I think that this is more...
Right, it's like right off the
And
bat.
the last
Yeah.
one.
I think that Maya Angelou has confidence in herself and in the reader that they'll be able to enjoy this for its face value, and that the quality of her story and how she's telling it is what drives this piece home.
It took a long time for me to come around to her side after that. I don't know, I just found it gross. But then by the time I got to the Joe Louis chapter, she had won me back over. So, I don't know why it's there, but I just felt like I had to mention it. And it's not the only time that it happens to her either, in church. So there's something,
I think that
something
there are
going on there.
There are things that cause me to scratch my head a little bit here and there. I still think that it was still a memoir of great quality, and I think that this is a necessary account that we follow.
Yeah, largely, I'd say that's
Yes.
true.
Well, one thing about that scene, which I get you struggle with it, but she was talking about wearing that dress, the purple, that lavender, what color was it? Lavender purple dress, thinking it was supposed to make her look more beautiful to people who would see her, that they would just see her, and they wouldn't see her as Black Maya. They would see her as a beautiful girl. She's wearing a beautiful dress, and it occurred to her that the only people that would be considered beautiful were white. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, she's had the same feelings I've had about self-worth, only she's had them magnified by 20.
I agree as far as Cyndi is concerned, especially the fact that this is the setting of the church, which I think that for you, actually for both of you, church is part of your frequent lives because you go once a week at least. Especially in that day, it was more common that the church played a crucial role within the community. She does make mention to major moments that took place within the church setting. There was the spat with her Uncle Willie at the church as well. It had to do with him getting really fed up with something that they were doing.
I remember the two moments when she, could not control her bladder. And then one time Uncle Willie was kind of center stage for that because she knew that, she was going to get a whooping when she got home. But she couldn't control her laugh for her and her brother.
Oh, that was the one where they were laughing, where they were inappropriately laughing, and that's where he got upset with them.
Yeah.
How would we rate this? 0 to 5 stars? Half stars permitted? Larry?
I'm going to go 3. I'll go 3. I thought that, like I said, she's an expert voice, very, very, very well written, very good to read mostly. But there's a couple of things that I don't understand why they're there, and I don't care for. So.
I thought it was powerfully written, well laid out, and very informative on that era, and I'm gonna give it a solid 4.
Okay. I'm going to give it a 4 as well. I think I do agree with you where there are things there that I didn't think were as necessary and it bogged down the reading experience, but I still think that Maya Angelou had such a powerful voice, and she definitely demonstrated it within this memoir. I learned a lot about her growing up, and the kind of lifestyle that she had and what she had to go through being a black woman constantly moving between the segregated South and a bit better of a circumstance in San Francisco, but at the same time have to deal with a circumstance where all people were not created equal. And it was demonstrated not just in, maybe not by the law, not by the laws, but by the dispositions of individuals. If you're interested in picking up I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, here is my copy. I got this as a paperback. I want to thank everybody for taking part in the journey that was the general discussions here on Literary Gladiators. This has been a magnificent 14 seasons and 410 discussions. I was going to say a few more things, but I want to allow Larry and Cyndi to speak first.
Well, yeah, I mean, Literary Gladiators has been a big part of my life for the past 14 seasons. How many years have we been doing it, Josh?
8 years.
8 years for the show?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I've been doing it for about, 6 or 7 then?
8 years.
Oh, okay. Since the first year. Yeah, it gets a little confusing because we were doing 2 seasons a year for a while there. All the way through, actually.
Yeah, I've enjoyed these. I've enjoyed these sessions. I've enjoyed the last couple of years doing this. It's been a great time to get out and talk with other bookish people. And so thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
And it is my pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a really good experience getting to know everybody. Wouldn't have been able to do it without you, Josh, because you're the founder of this thing. You made this all happen. So yeah, I'm grateful for the opportunity to spread my love for books and to talk about books with all of you people. It's been a lot of fun, and the channel is going to keep going, right?
Yes, I'll talk a little bit about that toward the end of the video. There's a few people I wanted to thank. Definitely you, Larry, you, Cyndi, to Dan, to Dominica, who has done an amazing job these past 3 seasons and 2 years as the assistant producer, the editor, person that films our videos, and also taking part in discussions and individual videos, and also to Jessie for her ongoing contributions. We've had a great group of people like Ari, he did some editing and worked on our panel. There's Kayla, who was an amazing part of the show. Charlie, who had, aside from me, the two of us were the first 2 people to get this thing rolling, and aside from myself, Charlie's the only person to take part in all 14 seasons of the show. When it comes to the execution of the show, I think that me and all of us probably would have wished that things could have been better as far as the popularity, the outreach, the viewership is concerned, but I think that we accomplished so much as far as the more important things are concerned regarding Literary Gladiators. I think that being able to get people together that have like-minded interest. I want to thank the late and great Michelle White Yates, who helped us get into the classrooms so that we could film our discussions back when I was still going to Kane University. I also want to thank Jeremy Pewick for helping me get into the library to film, and to Judy Clayton for making it happen, and to Lainey, who also helped me take those forward steps, and to Professor Hartman and to Dr. Bordelon for inspiring the structure of the channel. I think that we accomplished a lot as far as the most important things are concerned. I think that being part of the BookTube community, being able to connect with the BookTube community has been amazing, and it's going to continue to be amazing. But more importantly, the people that I've been able to connect with in person, the people that have been involved in the show. What means the most to me is when people take part on the show and then come back and tell me how much they enjoyed themselves and how much they would love to come back and do more. Many of them have come back to do more. That always means so much to me. It means so much to be able to work with a great group of people who I can't say enough fantastic things about how much everybody means to me. As much as the show is based off of discussion and debate with one another, one thing that everybody should know for sure is that I care immensely for all of you and for everybody that's taken part on the channel. I think that that's what we need to have more of in society, where people have the ability to disagree and despise during the day, as long as they can love and understand one another before the night is through. They may not be able to understand the opinion, but they should, and I would urge them to be able to understand the person and the fact that they are a caring and thinking human being that is just as capable of kindness and compassion.
And has an inherent dignity about everybody, or everybody's got an inherent dignity within themselves. And I think that might be one of the reasons that the show is not quite as popular as it might have been. There are so many different voices and disagreement, among the panel itself, and I think that that is a good thing, because we show that we are friends through it all, even though we don't agree on a whole lot. But still, you know what I mean? Just because of the fact that people are so embedded in their ideas and in their own opinions, it becomes difficult to hear the other side. And I think so. In order to do that, for the people that have stuck with us through this, through these times and all this fun that we've been having, I think it's a credit to you that you stuck it out with us.
One thing to note is that we are not going away for good. We are still going to be filming our individual videos. We have a great team of contributors. As I'm filming this, we have 24 contributors that are releasing individual content on a schedule that works best for them, and I think that they're all doing a terrific job. We have a team that includes people that have been on Literary Gladiators, on our physical panel. We've had people that I've met through Backstage, through BookTube, through Goodreads, and I think that sense of community and being able to bring everybody together is the most important thing about keeping BookTube going. Being able to have these differing counterpoints and perspectives, just as long as you're able to understand the other point of view within reason. I think that we're doing an amazing job, and I think that this will, hopefully, the direction with which we are going allows us to grow even more. We are still going to be meeting to do more casual videos, where we'll do miscellaneous discussions on the topics of books, reading, and literature. Group book tags, we'll be playing some games, doing some activities. We'll still be having a great time, and that is where a continued support on our Patreon is going to be of great help. We have a lot of great things that we want to release on our Patreon too. And this is not to say that we are never going to return to general discussions, but at this time, it doesn't seem like general discussions are working for us at this time, as far as getting the set group of people together, being able to properly execute a 4-person panel the way that we wanted to is concerned. However, being able to have people contribute in a more casual way where they can come and go as they please, as well as being able to have people contribute individually, where they read and discuss what they wish, is what works best for us at this time. I want to thank all of you, the viewers, for 8 terrific years of general discussions, 14 seasons, 410 discussions, and we have plenty of more videos that will be going up. I want to thank you for your continuous support in any which way that you were able to provide it, be it through subscription, through comments, through patronage, just through encouragement, giving us reason to come here and have a great time. And we have had terrific times filming these sessions. We come together, we eat, we engage in conversations, sometimes we go out to eat afterwards, we talk about the material. Being able to be around like-minded people has been priceless, and it's going to continue to be so. I want to thank you all for everything. Please continue to check us out here on Literary Gladiators. Keep reading, and God bless all of you.